traveling kind, and you won't understand the world through your eyes. Inflexible planes, he wanders through genders, lovers and friends, through space and through time. Your trip never ends. They call and we hear say, hey pretty girl, all planes will flag on the nationless soil. But way down below, under love's clothes, is a parallel world that you just never know. Pheromones, hair, legs barely shaven. Here past the ghost, here boundaries uneven. See eats from the trash and plays for here pay. She doesn't have a home, she's not here to stay. She's the traveling kind, and you won't understand the world through her eyes. Inflexible planes, he wanders through genders, lovers and friends, through space and through time. Your trip never ends. She learned how to fight, to scream and to bite. Her claws are protracted when walking at night. She mostly sings in the gentleman's side, but if you heard her sisters, you better run and hide. She's the traveling kind, and you won't understand the world through her eyes. Inflexible planes, he wanders through genders, lovers and friends, through space and through time. Her trip never ends. So that is a song that I basically never perform anymore. And I was kind of excited about it when I first wrote it and was finishing it for a recording. I was about to make an album within the next month and just wanted to make sure I had enough material. And I was inspired to start writing it after a woman in my community was stating that someone had sexually assaulted her, and she wanted to call all these people together in person to come hear her talk and say her piece about what happened, instead of sharing it on social media or telling individual people and having the story just travel and change down the line. And she wanted people maybe to be able to ask her questions, but maybe mainly just so she didn't have to say it a bunch of times and people would know it came from her mouth. So everyone gathered together in this spot and listened to her talk. And then of course it kind of turned into like a town meeting almost. And all the people involved and who came and who knew her, some closer to the person she was accusing, some on her side, and her boyfriend and a lot of other friends wanted to go out and beat up or kill this person, and then other people were in defense of the person being accused and saying, don't ruin his life, you people are so sensitive. And that was an interesting thing that kept coming up, was it was kind of like these different factions of punks coming together, and in a lot of ways they had similar ideals but couldn't see it and didn't understand each other and were just claiming all these things about the other side. And it kind of reminds me of kind of like how conservatives and liberals right now especially have all these different words for each other, like the liberal snowflakes and things like that, and they're things that just don't even really make sense and don't understand individual people. And this was kind of my first time seeing this in action, and this was before Trump was elected and everything, so there wasn't much wide use of the term like snowflake that I had ever heard. But basically the people who were on the side of the accused, the guy, kept calling all the people associated and in defense of the woman old-timey kids. And I wasn't totally aware of that specific subgenre of punk at the time. And so I didn't even know what they were talking about, but it seemed to be what they were accusing this group of people who apparently all had the same ideas and were all the same as each other, as kind of being like snowflakes, like you're too sensitive and you care too much about things like consent and communication when it comes to sexuality, and you're just, you know, little babies and crying and want all this attention, and you're ruining someone's life by claiming this. And it was crazy to see this juxtaposition of people and how they didn't understand each other, and then everyone's individual lives started coming up and they started talking about other things that kind of weren't related to what we'd gathered there for. But so I came home from this event and started writing this song because I was thinking a lot about being misunderstood, and I guess they would have called me an old-timey kid because I believed in those things that they were complaining that people believed in, and I was just kind of feral, traveling person a lot at the time, and this song quickly started becoming a lot more personal for me, but I decided to put it in third person because I didn't want to present it as a really personal autobiographical song exactly, because I still wanted it kind of be about this greater community that I had experienced. But I did feel one of the things that kept coming up was gender identity, and the way that I present my gender, and the way I would hide parts of myself in order to be accepted at a job or be accepted in a certain group of people that would have rejected me for one reason or another, and how I kind of couldn't really hide it, but felt like there was no one who really understood what I had below everything I was presenting. And I even, within my own experience of gender identity, when I was in high school, I basically for a while identified as male and wanted to be thought of as male by my friends, and talked to a few close friends about this, and eventually went away from that very strict categorization of my own gender. And the more I learned about internalized misogyny in my own particular, not to say this is other people's experience with gender identity, but my own particular experience with it was a lot of it was coming from me rejecting the feminine in myself for various traumatic reasons. And when I was learning to re-accept that side of myself, I came to much more of a balance with it, and even a lot more excited about identifying as femme and female for myself. And I almost don't present myself within that conversation a lot of the time, because I know a lot of people have other much more intense experience of gender identity and really feeling like they're born into the wrong body and want it to be changed, and it's been such a huger issue for so much of their life. And that was a big part of why I made it third person, because I didn't want it to be a song of me claiming this to my identity, but it was still from my own experience. And even outside of the gender identity thing, just something about, I'm a very earthy, crunchy person, and no matter how much I would try to fit into something other than that, whether it was for the nude modeling I did or for the stripping or various other things I did, I could never truly hide that part of myself, but people just didn't even understand where I was coming from with it. And I got the line feral pheromones when I was trying to finish this song. I needed one more verse maybe, and I was in New York City and wanted to try to make money by doing one of those like sugar baby, sugar daddy arrangements. And I got really, really close to doing it. I met the person and I went back to their house, and I was basically supposed to be a prostitute to them. And there were just so many things about it that made it not work out for me. Like, first of all, he was really not aggressive, like I was scared he was going to hurt me, but I just really didn't like his aggressive energy. He was being really dominant towards me. And I know probably people who work as prostitutes are really used to that and working with that. But for me, it was just such a turnoff and just made me so mad and triggered that it was just like I didn't want him anywhere near me. But I still kind of, once I got him to calm that down, there were so many things that kept coming up. Like, I had just taken a shower before I came there, but he kept telling me that I smelled, and he kept trying to give me deodorants to put on so that I could smell better, and kept implying that I was dirty and all this stuff. And I kept thinking, like, wow, if you think I smell now, imagine if we went further with this. And I was just thinking, I have this like feral pheromones and everything else that I just can't even tame in myself. There's no way. And I ended up not going through with it and got an Uber home that night. And so the moral of that story is that I'm bad at being a prostitute. Can't go through with it. But more power to the people who are good at that. But anyway, that's where that line came from. And the part about she mostly sings, or Z mostly sings in the gentleman's side, that was still a reference back to often when I was playing in my bandmate would say, okay, all the women sing now, all the men sing now. It would be like a way of interacting with the crowd, and I always had a weird reaction to that, and I didn't like having to automatically identify with one of those sides to sing, and so I'd always sing on the men's side. But it's also a reference back to my gender identity adventure that I've been through in my life. And the part about you hurt here, sisters, you better run and hide, that was a reference back to wanting to protect this woman in my community who was claiming the sexual assault, and bringing it back to what had originally inspired the song. And it uses these Z, here, here's pronouns that were something I first heard of maybe around 2002, maybe 2001. When I started going to hear different gender theory presentations. I went to this camp called Camp Trans that was a protest outside of this other festival, this women's music festival that I also cared a lot about and was trying to hear different sides. And so I first heard about that then when I was in high school, and then I started hearing it a lot when I was in college and really being part of the conversation around it. And it's kind of like how today they use the pronoun they. They're trying to just create a third pronoun for a third gender, he, here, and Z, here, and here's. And it never really caught on, and as a linguist, because that's actually what my major was in college, I understand why it didn't catch on. But I still decided, in order to cement it and put in this like subliminal level more of people's minds towards thinking about alternative genders, I decided to write a whole song that was using these other gender pronouns. So that's some of the scandalous story behind this song that I never sing anymore. It's still kind of a cool song though. And musically, I based the melody, at least of the waltz part, over this song I had written in high school that I never used, but I still thought it was a cool melody, so I wanted to do something with it. And the chords of the 4/4 part of the chorus are really inspired by this song, You'll Never Leave Harlan Alive, that I really like, but I changed them up a little bit and changed the melody so I wouldn't actually be copying it. Okay, so that's my song, The Traveling Kind. Thank you.